Walcott, who can run away from them. Blin trying to buy him a bit of time. Ozil, two!
This is Barkley, away from Otamendi. He's got two runners to his left and one to his right. Barkley wants to go alone, and why not?
Manchester City are still alive here. Balotelli, Aguero!
Hello, good evening, good morning and good night, whichever one of the three you're listening at. It is the Football Hipsters back in your ears again with another English breakfast. My name is Kris and I've got the usual gruesome twosome back this week. I've got Ross and I've got Danny. Good evening to you both.
Evening.
Hello.
Welcome back, Danny. How's the bathroom? I know all our listeners are desperate to know. They've all been tweeting in asking.
Lee the dirty Y word, as he calls himself, from Twitter, come round earlier, and he's a builder, and he went, "The state of those tiles are shocking. Look, they're all uneven." I don't really care. I think they look all right. Bathroom's lovely, but when I show people the toilet and the warm water comes up, flying up through the air to clean your nether regions, people love it. Women go in there and they squeal when they use it. They love it.
Goodness great. There you go. See, Football Hipsters podcast at the cutting edge of bathroom talk. Right, well, we are here to talk football, of course, gentlemen. So we should get on with it, shouldn't we, really? Now, apologies in advance. We didn't really take questions tonight because I've had a bit of a hectic schedule. So we are recording on a whim, but we do have one question. But I know Ross has a question for me and you, Danny, later on, so I'm sure we'll fill the space. But until then, let's just talk about some football. It's going to be a bit Premier League heavy this weekend because there wasn't much else going on. So let's start with our team, Danny, shall we? Arsenal away at Everton. Yes. What, having caught up, what did you make of the game? What did you make of the performance from both perspectives? Because you've got the Everton fans who are not happy with Martinez, and you've got the Arsenal fans who are just never happy.
Well, I was talking to my mate Dean, who's the Everton fan, who has been on our other pod, and he phoned me today, and he said they are disgusting. He said they've lost 6 out of the last 9 home games. They showed no passion. He said, you know when your team is rubbish when you bring on Gareth Barry to strengthen your midfield up. He said it's awful. He says he wants the bloke gone, and if he doesn't win the FA Cup, then he's going to be sacked because they've got all the new money coming in from the bloke who used to have shares in Arsenal. And he bought a 49.9% stake in the club. He's going to pump big amounts of money into it. So they want someone to do, I think they want to do like a Slaven Bilic has done at West Ham. A player to come up. I wouldn't be surprised they try and steal him, but now West Ham are on the verge of being a big team. That's not going to happen. But the game itself, well, in the Premier League, there is 2 teams at the bottom of the Premier League for number of yellow cards. That's Arsenal and Everton, and they got no combined yellow cards between them today. I was just looking at Villarreal, Barcelona. The Villarreal got, I think, 8 yellow cards on their own, so it's just a bit weird to see that. Even though there was tackles, there was 23 to Everton, 21 to Arsenal. Shots on goal was roughly about the same, 11-8 to Arsenal. But it's just nice seeing that a player like Iwobi can come in and against Barcelona and do a good job. And he says sometimes he plays left, sometimes he plays right. I think when he scored the goal, he was probably coming from the right-hand side of it. But first of all, you had Welbeck, lovely through ball from Sanchez, give it through to Welbeck, one-on-one with the goalkeeper, put it behind the goalkeeper, scored, lovely, 1-0. Coquelin played brilliantly as usual. He started to get right back into his form pre-injury, which is probably the form that he started to get this time last season. And then the second goal was a wonder goal for Iwobi. Maybe not the quality of the goal or anything like that, although it was really impressive. His first ever goal for Arsenal. And I think he's played 15 games, all competitions, mostly coming on as a 91st minute sub. But it was nice for him to see it. And as an Arsenal fan, it's encouraging to see someone go one-on-one with a defender, the defender barge him, and then the player look at him and go, is that all you have? I'm going to go and score. Good night. And he did. If that had been the Ox or Theo Walcott, that player, one of the defenders, I think it was Mori, probably would have put it, or Jagielka, probably would have put him into Rose Ed. But to have a player like that who's got pace, he's got speed, pace is speed is the same thing. He's got balance, he's got ability, and he's got an eye for goal. And I think him and Welbeck working together is the kind of stuff that Ozil and Sanchez can make the most out of. With El Neni, who is, I think, cemented his place in midfield now. I don't think we'll be getting him out anytime soon. Him and Coquelin in the middle, pulling all the strings there and getting the ball back, and another clean sheet for Ospina, and an assist from Bellerin, which I think is his 3rd Premier League assist in 2 games, and he has had 2 for the rest of the last season, or some stat like that went across the screen when I was watching Match of the Day. Really impressive win. but it's only 2 wins out of 9 now for Arsenal. But yeah, well, all they can do is go away and win, which they've done, like most other teams do at Everton.
Yeah, true that. And Ross, it's Everton I want to ask you a little bit about because Danny's done a very, very good piece on Arsenal there. So let's talk about Everton a little bit. There was a fan that rung BBC 6 of 6 programme last night and it made me chuckle actually. He was very passionate and very honest, and he said that part of him hates the idea that they could get to the FA Cup final and indeed win it, because that would mean Martinez would probably stay.
I heard that.
What do you make of that, Ross? Do you think Everton fans are asking for too much, or do you think they've got every right to be sort of disillusioned at the moment?
I'd have to say that's a strange policy from Everton fans. I know understandably there's going to be some fans that are upset with Martinez and the way the team's playing, but surely you want your team to succeed, don't you? I think it's I don't know. It's just strange to me that the idea that fans are actively discouraging success amongst their teams because they're not content with the way the manager's moulding the team. Because I still think he's a good manager. He just needs to work on the back line. So, if you win the FA Cup and with all the money you've got coming in with a new owner, you'd like to think that you'd be a more attractive proposition as a club. So I don't know. I'm not on board with that. If Everton fans would rather replace their manager than win the FA Cup, then I think they've got their priorities in the wrong order, personally.
It's definitely a tough one, isn't it? One other quick question on Everton, just out of interest from your perspective as a Southampton fan. The squads, I would suggest, between Everton and Southampton are not massively different, but whereas the expectation levels seem to be hugely different. Would you say, in your opinion, Everton overrate some of their quote unquote stars, or do you believe the hype around a lot of them? I'm looking at sort of the Stones, the Barkleys, the Lukaku's.
Well, I think Tom put it best in our WhatsApp group the other day when he said that the front line at Everton is a top 4 challenging front line, but the back line is a bottom 6 it's a bottom 6 back line. I don't think you can overhype the players they've got up front, like Lukaku, like Barkley, because they are very impressive. They do work very well together, and certainly Lukaku's got the stats to back him up. But it's the back line that's the problem, and I think that if not the fans, but the manager at least overestimates the quality in the back line, because something's wrong there. If it's tactical or whether it's personnel, something is wrong there, and that needs addressing.
Yep. I think that's a very fair way of putting it. Let's move on then to our next game. And obviously we had a couple of 3 o'clock kickoffs. Now, with this result under the belts of Arsenal, it's kind of put, I wouldn't say pressure, but let's just say Leicester went into it knowing that one of the teams behind them had won. And they went to Crystal Palace and they came away with a 1-0 win. I'll stick with you, Ross, first of all, on this one. I think we both looked at this and thought, it could be a draw. Palace desperately needed the points, and we can talk about them in a second. But is this just yet another example of Leicester doing the old grinding out results, doing enough to win, and ultimately potentially securing a title?
Well, yeah, that's the real debate is whether or not that was a shaky 1-0 win that shows that Leicester are starting to wobble near the end of the season, or is that a digging out kind of 1-0 win, that the stuff of champions that you'd say if Arsenal won that game 1-0, then it'd be a champion's performance. So it's an interesting debate. I would side myself on it being a sign that they're starting to waver, but that's only because they've never been here before, and teams that haven't been here before usually do start to waver at this kind of time in the season. You look at the Liverpool side a couple of seasons ago, and the Man City side that did it in 2011, they were very close to winning it, and it was 2010, I can't remember which season it was now, but they were right up there and they started to wobble because it was an unfamiliar position. So it's an interesting debate, but I think as neutrals, we're all kind of hoping that it's a sign of things to come. It's a sign that they can carry on keeping up this momentum and keep challenging for the top.
Yeah, I think it's, I have to confess, even I'm starting to now say I was wrong, and I'm happy to hold my hands up. I'm wrong on a lot of things. But Danny, one thing I don't think I'm wrong on is that Crystal Palace are in trouble. They're in real trouble. They're in free fall, let's be honest. Struggling to win games, struggling to score goals. Fans are starting to turn. Even Alan Pardew's struggling to smile with those teeth. That's quite expensive. So, well, what do you make of them? Do you think they're in a serious relegation dogfight now?
Originally, it was the problem because they had a great start to the season, and then Kabaye was out injured, and he's the man that makes it all work. And then the next excuse was it Balassi who was playing wide left? I know Zaha played right.
Was Balassi.
Yeah, Balassi. Then Balassi was out injured, and then when he comes back, it'll all be okay. But when you look at it, you've got Balassi, Zaha, Kabaye, and then Jedinak, and I think that is a very decent midfield, 3 or 4, depending on where you play them. Their problem is strikers. They've got Adebayor. He's mentally not gone. Normally he turns up, scores 50 goals in his first 3 games, then they buy him, and then he turns to rubbish after that. And you've got Dwight Gale, they bought from Peterborough. He's an ex-Arsenal youth. Was at Peterborough, did all right, went to Palace, and he hasn't really done much. And then they've got Marouane Chamakh, another ex-Arsenal player and striker. They've got all these strikers that aren't doing the job, and they've spent a lot of money on them. I don't like it when teams go and buy players from like the 3rd tier of English football, then chuck them in at the Premier League and expect it to do it. I like to see players work their way through, but that's a hell of a big jump. You look like the likes of Benik Afobe, who's gone to Bournemouth, had a good start, and now he's quietened down a little bit. I don't know if he's been injured, but I've not seen him score much. It's going to be hard for them because you can't just come from like Adebayor, not have played a game in over a year, and then come in and then you're starting games. It's not really going to work. So, yeah, poor old what's his name? The manager. Pardew, a Barnet legend. I remember seeing him playing at Barnet, bless him, breathing out of his backside. But I like Palace. I don't want them to go down. And it's sad.
Yep, fair point. And Ross, the Pardew issue continues. We've spoken at length on this pod previously about the sort of experiences that you had with him. This strikes me as a bit deeper than just a bad run now. I mean, is it terminal? Do you think they could potentially slip into that bottom 3 now?
I think they're in danger of it because the teams below them are picking up points. I know that it wasn't the most successful weekend for all the teams this weekend, but there's still plenty of points to play for. And end of season always throws up ridiculous results for the relegation sides. I think for Pardew, for Crystal Palace as a whole, winning is a habit, but losing is a habit, and that's a very old saying in football, but it's true. And Palace have learnt that the hard way at the moment. I think Pardew is a manager that's desperately looking to consolidate things and just get to the summer and then sit down with the team and go, right, where did we go wrong? Let's try again next season. But at the same time, I do wonder that regardless of whether they stay up or go down, is Pardew's job at stake because of how well they did before he came in, how well they were going, and then how well they did when he first came in to where they are now. It's a shocking turnaround. So I wonder whether his position is safe regardless of whether they stay up or not.
It's interesting, isn't it? Especially as like with the money and whatnot. Isn't it weird that I think a few people have made this point, but that it was when they got the investment confirmed that it's all gone to ruin. It's
I believe their chairman said this week that they should be aiming to do a Leicester as well. And Pardew's not the kind of manager that's going to help you do a Leicester. So
no pressure.
It's weird at the moment 'cause in the Premier League you've got if you could think how best to run a Premier League club, do a Norwich, buy a load of players, not working. Do a Pattern, buy them at January. Do a Palace, buy some decent players at the beginning of the season, that's not working. Do a Chelsea, a Man City, a Man United, spend £300 million on players, that isn't working. Do the Arsenal, where you just add a couple of players every year, that doesn't seem to be working. The only thing that seems to be working is team unity, team bonding, having everyone all working for the same goal, which is what's kind of happening at Leicester, kind of happening at Southampton, and who knows what's going on at Spurs. I think they've been told that because they've got to pay for the stadium, you've got to play as well as you can, and then you can all leave because we need the money to pay for it, much like Arsenal did back in the day.
Yeah,
but it's weird because you've probably got like Bournemouth. People might know if you go and do an internet search on Bournemouth and why they're in trouble with the Football League if they get relegated. They've done it in a different way. They put all their money into the players rather than the ground and wages. Villa, I don't know how you're going to explain what Villa have done. Stoke, they're another one. Pumped. Actually, Stoke is working quite well, isn't it? Because they've spent all the money on all those decent players and they're not doing too bad in the league.
They've got the backing of Bet365, haven't they? That's Peter Coates' company, so I think they're comfortable for a number of years. But interestingly, I think it's Robbie Savage said last night that he thinks Mark Hughes should be aiming to get Stoke into those Champions League places now.
Why not? Yeah.
I mean, you look at the money coming in. Yeah, absolutely. Which is quite
very decent players. I mean, they got the most number of Champions League winners at that club.
Yeah.
That didn't win it with that club than any other team in. There's about 5 of them there, isn't there?
And then we really could say, how would Barcelona get on a wet Tuesday night in Stoke?
They'd get mullered.
It would. It's a beautiful segue, though. So let's talk about Stoke. Why not? I mean, they're next on my list. So they went away to Watford and came away with a 2-1 victory. I think it's safe to say Watford's focus is probably on the FA Cup now after beating some team. I can't even remember who it was last weekend in that game, but we'll move on. But goals from Walters and Joselu with a late reply from Troy Deeney. Ross, what do you make of Stoke? I mean, do you think what I was just saying to Danny there? Do you think that maybe they should be aiming higher? Some of the talent they've got there, they could go big again in the summer. I mean, maybe Mark Hughes is a good manager after all.
Yeah, I mean, there's a clutch of teams in and around the Champions League places that will be challenging for it next year, and Stoke are definitely in it. They've got the financial muscle to contend now, and I've always thought that Mark Hughes was an okay manager. I think he got a bad rap at QPR because it's QPR, and at that point they were in a shocking way. But I thought he did a good job at Man City. I thought he did a good job at Blackburn. I didn't have many reservations about him. Yeah,
didn't he get Fulham into the UEFA Cup and then leave?
He was at Fulham briefly, wasn't he?
Yeah, that does ring a bell. Him having a season or two at Fulham and then deciding he was going to move on. I don't think he's a bad manager, and I think he's got a good fit with Stoke because it's a nice project. It's one where the defensive line was already there. It was already nice and structured. He just had to add some colour to it, and he's definitely done that with your Joselus and your Afalais and your Arnautovic's and all the rest.
Arnautovic.
Is it his fifth Premier League team as manager? We forgot he was at Blackburn. He started with Wales for 5 years, then Blackburn for 4, Man City for 1, Fulham for 1, QPR for less than 1, and then Stoke for, third year now? Wow.
Amazing, isn't it? And just a quick plug, I'm sure Ross will have seen this. If you haven't ever seen the 5-year plan, the 4-year plan, the QPR documentary the BBC did?
I've seen that.
I mean, wow. If you haven't seen it, just watch it and you'll get a good glimpse behind the scenes at what went on at QPR just before Hughes came in, I think it was.
Leicester say they've got a 5-year plan and that seems to be working.
Yeah.
Southampton have had a 5-year plan, Bournemouth had a 5-year plan. There's a lot of 5-year plans going around.
QPR made the mistake of filming it. That's the downside, but it's well worth.
Every 15 minutes in the documentary, they change their manager.
It's car crash. Although, Danny, you might be old enough to remember this. Yeah. Years ago, slight sidebar here, Sunderland did similar. I believe it was called Premier Passions, and it was on the BBC, and it was when Peter Reid was still in charge at Sunderland.
Was that when Niall Quinn was chairman?
No, I think it's before that. It was back in the days when they had the likes of Lionel Perez in goal, if you remember that far back.
The Frenchman who ended up at Cambridge.
Yeah, and Paul Bracewell and Steve Agnew and players such as that. And it was aired in the mid to late 90s on BBC in the UK.
Oh, here we go, 1998 according to IMDb.
There you go.
This 6-part fly-on-the-wall documentary charts the English football club Sunderland throughout the 96-97 Premier League season as the newly promoted club tries to avoid relegation.
There you go.
6
part. And
God.
I bought it off eBay on video on VHS for about £5 a few years ago.
Was it a good investment?
They
bought Stefan Schwartz and Steve Bold, and I vaguely remember it.
It's a brilliant watch. Peter Reid going absolutely mental is well worth a watch. And just one other quick plug before we get back to our task at hand. There's one other that you should definitely dig out. Well, there's two others, but one other documentary.
Peterborough United one with Ron Atkinson.
Avoid that for obvious reasons.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it was good. No, I'm thinking of the one about the Club for £1, the Leighton Orient one. Ross, you should look this up if you haven't seen it as well. It's when I think it's Leighton Orient, was sold for £1, and it charts the manager at the time, whose name completely escapes me.
He used to go mental all the time.
Yes, please look it up, Danny, because I can't remember what the show was called, but it was Club for £1. The documentary was called, and it charts essentially a manager having a nervous breakdown on TV. He properly breaks down on TV, and to the point where I think he uses the line, he's in the changing rooms talking to the players, and he says, and if you perform like that, you can come next week and you can bring your dinner. You can bring your dinner and we'll have a chat. And it's like, honestly, it's car crash television. I will look it up as we're talking, but it is well worth a watch.
I keep finding Southend-on-Sea. We saw it. Was it Leighton Orient?
I'm sure it's Leighton Orient. Leighton Orient documentary, but I'll look it up as we're talking. But we'll move on. One other final one, actually. Look up Neil Warnock rant at halftime.
Oh, it's called Sold for a Fiver.
That's it.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
There you
Parts
go.
of it. All of it is on YouTube, actually.
There you go.
Lovely 10 minutes. Oh, Jesus, got it. Sorry, people might have heard that.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, so if you go and look for Leighton Orient documentary, sold for a fiver, Fiver, all the bits are on. It's called Top Football Videos.
There you go.
I bet they got some wonderful things on there.
We will tweet the link from our podcast account to the
Yes.
YouTube page. But honestly, if you've got an hour, what's the guy's name, Danny? The manager's name?
Oh, I don't think it said the manager's name on there.
I'm frantically typing away. What a live piece of podcasting this is, eh? But there's the guy.
There's a picture of him.
There's his face. Yeah,
all dressed in blue.
John Sitton. That's the guy. Yep, absolutely car crashly brilliant. And the Neil Warnock one, another one. Please look up Neil Warnock halftime rant. Not safe for children, I should say. Right, let's get back to the Premier League. That was a good little sidebar, but do watch that. Very, very good. Ross, let me come back to you. Let's talk about West Brom and Norwich.
You haven't finished on Stoke yet. What a wonderful goal by, was it Walters? We chipped it over the goalie?
Yeah, we should
chip was
Josselu's.
Josselou, I know it's either the first or second goal because he only scored 2.
Very
I'm very
good.
impressed. And Walters, proving you can still play football when you're 60.
Oh, John Walters.
I'm going to shut up now.
He'll keep playing until he's 80, trust me. But yes, West Brom and Norwich, Ross. Now, this was a game that, going into it, I must admit, I didn't see a Norwich win coming. I have to confess. But
I think Norwich saw a Norwich win coming.
No, I don't think they did. But it's 2 clean sheets on the bounce now. It's 4 points from 2 games, 1 away from home, 1 at home to Man City. Is there a flicker of hope in the Norwich dressing room after this, do you think?
I would say that there has to be, because it's a turnaround in form, even if it's just clean sheets. The thing is, though, that West Brom were very poor, and the game as a whole was an awful, awful watch. The goal itself typified how poor the entire game was, because it was a miss kick that just happened to bobble to Brady, I think it was, that popped in the winner. It was a miserable game, and it was the kind of game that Norwich needed to win, and it's the kind of game that Norwich are going to have to try and dig out for the rest of the season. But considering it was such a low quality game, they need to be happy they got those 3 points, but they can't expect it to be that sort of performance every single week, because better teams will have them week in and week out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And thank you very much, Ross, for giving me that quote of that video, because I am going to bleep it, but I'm going to read it out to our listeners as we leave. So thank you for that. But
That's some cock-a-doodle-doos going through it like I did before, a little Gimli.
Oh, that would be awesome. I think we should do that. I think we should give our listeners a treat this evening. In the absence of questions, we'll read that out. But just picking up for what Ross said there, Danny, with Norwich, it sort of had that air of a game where, if you listen to, I think it's Russell Martin spoke after the game to Match of the Day, and he's quite a well-spoken chap. It had the sort of effect of almost the players maybe just believing themselves that they could almost engineer a Leicester type escape like they did last season. The players were very upbeat after this, as was their manager. So what do you make of Norwich? Do you think they've got the potential to get out of this now?
No, not them. No, they will get out of it. It'll have very little to do with them. It'll have more to do with Sunderland, Newcastle and Palace being abysmal. Norwich they're now 2 points ahead of Sunderland and 3 points ahead of Newcastle. Both got a game in hand, but they've also got Sunderland have got the best goal difference, only by 3. But then Crystal Palace are dropping like a stone. They've not won any of their last 6, and like you just said, Norwich have had back-to-back undefeated and 2 clean sheets in a row. I think it was it 0-0 with Chelsea?
Man City at home.
Oh, Man City. There you go. And it was 0-0. And that's looking pretty good for them. That's going to build, this time of season, that is going to build confidence. They've only got 7 games left to go. And their manager will be saying, if we can maybe win a couple, avoid defeat in another couple, that's 6-8 points. That could be enough to put them up to the Swansea Crystal Palace area. But Crystal Palace are doomed. Swansea, you're just saying about that game. Swansea game was atrocious. I mean, the ball over for the Swansea goal was no one even knew what's going to happen. Just come over and, oh, look, there you go, it's gone here. Oh, it's off for someone else. Oh, no, it's gone in the net. So many teams now, it's just like they're all in quicksand and they're all sinking. But luckily for most of them, Aston Villa are already down. I mean, they've lost their last 6 in a row. And it doesn't even show any further back than 6. But they're now 9 points adrift of Newcastle above them. But I think it's going to be Newcastle and Sunderland and Palace are the ones that are going to be all rabbling around in the quicksand, while Norwich managed to scrape their way out, because Norwich have got some decent players. Naismith has yet to put in any kind of shift of the form that he had that saw him get the hat-trick early this season. but they've got some new players in there, and I think they've bought, was it 6 players in the January transfer window? You've got to remember they need time to bed in and settle in, and I think that may be starting to happen because they've only lost 3 out of the last 6. But for a team near relegation, that's not too bad.
Do you want me to give you a reason to get excited for Norwich?
Go on then.
Their next 3 fixtures.
Next 3 fixtures.
Yeah, this is where you're going to doom what I've just said, and they've got Man United 3 times away.
No, we're going to back you up.
After the international break, Norwich have Newcastle United at home, Crystal Palace away, and then Sunderland at home.
Oh, there you go, Norwich fans.
And then after that, they've got a guaranteed 3 points at the Emirates. So
Wouldn't be surprised unless Jack Wilshere's back for another wonder goal.
Oh yeah, and then it's true what Ross says. It's crucial. I mean, Newcastle, Palace, and Sunderland the next 3. And then, as we say, away to Arsenal, then at home to Manchester United, then at home to Watford, and they finish away at Everton. So conceivably, 4 of those games are winnable, aren't they? Really?
You take 7 points from those next 3 games, and Norwich are in as good a position as anyone, and Crystal Palace are in huge problems.
Yes, absolutely.
Crystal Palace's games are away at West Ham, they're home to Norwich, away to Arsenal, away to Man United.
Ouch.
If you listen carefully, on the last day as well. You can hear the splash of Crystal Palace grinding to a halt and falling into the ocean face first.
Yes, absolutely. And we should also touch on another beautiful segue. Ross, I'll come back to you. Danny briefly touched on it there. Swansea all but relegated Aston Villa yesterday, but it would be fair to say that Villa probably deserved a bit more. Swansea didn't really look convincing, and let's be perfectly frank, Brad Guzan rather presented them with their winner.
Yeah, that game had 0-0 all over it until Guzan made that really stupid mistake and left the goal gaping, frankly, for the only goal. It's tricky with Villa because you've covered so much of this ground before, not just on this podcast, but every piece of media you'll ever read about Villa between now and the end of the season will be going over the same old ground. Swansea, you'd like to think, are now in a position where they can think of themselves as safe because they will gain 4 more points before this season's done. I'm sure of that. The big question now is the reports that came out yesterday about perhaps Remy Gard being sacked before the end of the season. If there's any truth in that, I'd be absolutely astounded because Remy Gard has done nothing to get himself sacked. It's the team, it's the state of their club that's got them into this position, and the fact that he's currently the figurehead, I don't see why he should get the sack. I think it'd be a hideous decision if he does go. I think that would just really put the bow on a really terrible Aston Villa season if they brought in such a nice guy that has done his absolute best and then to sack him for something he couldn't really help anyway.
Yeah, funny enough, actually, somebody asked me on Twitter the other day. They said, do I still believe that Remy Gard would be a good Arsenal manager to step in after Arsene Wenger? And I said, well, in a weird way, I can't really answer that question because you can't really judge Remy Gard, can you? I mean, he was completely lied to about the situation, seemingly, allegedly. Wasn't given the funds that he was clearly promised. Had a squad of players that was a mishmash of all sorts, and essentially he's just been parachuted into a flaming pit, and I feel for Remy Gard.
I still don't feel like I know who Remy Gard is.
No, I think that's fair.
I didn't know who he was before he came to England, and I still don't know who he is now. I've not seen anything from that Aston Villa team. I don't think that's his fault. I think it's the Villa side's fault because it looks exactly the same as it did under Sherwood.
They've won 2 in their last 30 Premier League games.
Ouch! And to be
honest,
honest,
against Norwich and Palace.
And to be honest, if you're Remy Gard managing Aston Villa right now, you're probably looking at yourself in the mirror going, "I'm not sure who Remy Gard is."
I used to Remy Gard in quite well.
Thank you, Tom.
Hey!
Moving on. So, yeah, we think Swansea's safe. What I would say, though, is, I mean, Swansea's next couple of fixtures, like you say, Ross, you would say they should get 4. Away at Stoke, home to Chelsea, away at Newcastle. What I would say is lose those 3, and all of a sudden, do you know what I mean? It's not quite, and then they go away to Leicester, and then home to Liverpool after that. So is
the manager out of hospital yet?
Yes, Guidolin was back
he there
on the
today?
sidelines. He was, yeah. But, well, not today because they played yesterday. But
actually, it's the day before now. It's Monday.
Absolutely,
God,
good
I
point.
don't even know what day it is, do I?
And then if you look at even the last 2 fixtures, away at West Ham, home to Man City, it's not cut and dried yet, is it? I mean, they still got to...
No, it's not. It's not safe. I mean, no one is really safe out that bottom at the moment. But you'd still think if 40 points is going to be enough, which it looks like it will be, I'd still say Swansea have got enough about them to just get those last 4, just to make sure of it. But I wouldn't be surprised if 36 is enough to stay up this season. So
No, that's
Isn't it
that's a
weird?
very good point.
Just thinking thinking from an Arsenal fan's point of view, for the last few seasons, it's Ashley Williams. That's the defender you want to get. He's brilliant. Look what he's doing for Swansea. Now he's doing nothing. Then it was Winston Reid of West Ham. Look at him. He's the man who's going to save Arsenal. Now he's nothing. At the moment, it's the Leicester defender, isn't it?
Where's Morgan?
No, is it Simpson?
Oh, Danny Simpson, really?
Maybe.
The fullback?
Who's the centre back?
Where's Morgan and
Who's the one
Robert
who got
Huth?
sent off against Arsenal?
That was Drinkwater, wasn't it?
Simpson got sent off
Oh,
against
Simpson,
Arsenal,
you're right,
but the
yes, you're
centre
right.
back is Wes Morgan and Robert
Oh,
Huth.
there you go. So it's Wes Morgan. So I expect this time next season, Wes Morgan and Leicester to be in relegation dire trouble, just like Ashley Williams is, because it seems to be there's one, oh, he didn't cost much, he's brilliant, he'd save any club, and they end up doing nothing.
I quite like Ashley Williams, but I'm with you. It is flavour of the week, isn't it? It's flavour.
I'm just looking at the Swansea team, because we're on those at the moment. Sigurdsson, no, I'm not saying it right, am I? Gylfi, that's it. 9 goals in 31 games for someone who is he plays in the Ozil hole, doesn't he? Kind of. And
free roll, yeah.
Yeah, and apart from him, then you've got AU who's got 8 goals and Gomez has got 5. The rest of the team have virtually got no goals. So it's all around those 3 players. And if it wasn't for me to take out Gylfi from that, then they'd be absolutely knackered. Wayne Routledge, 1 goal all season. And then remember Key, he was a fantastic player for them last season. He's got 1 all season as well.
I think if you parachute a Jermaine Defoe type striker into Swansea's side, they're a better side. I do think they lack a goal scorer, but
I think most teams down the bottom with him, because he's poaching us. Fox in a box.
True that. Yeah, true that.
That's 3 times you said true that.
It
Have
is.
you been watching Boys in the Hood again?
I've gone all through.
If
You're very proud.
You've been behind the sofa watching it.
I have, you're hiding. But yeah, so we think Swansea's safe, but you never know. Watch this space. Okay. The only other game on the Saturday was Chelsea 2, West Ham 2, and it's safe to say that a draw was probably not a fair result. I think West Ham were the better side for long periods. Goals from West Ham, they were 1-up through Lanzini. Cesc Fabregas equalising with a very good free kick, has to be said. Andy Carroll putting West Ham back in front, and then a last-minute penalty from the aforementioned Fabregas after a non-trip in out the box. It was controversial, Ross, fair to say, as not Antonio Valencia. What's his face? Mikel Antonio, that's the chap. Cut across Ruben Loftus-Cheek. What did you make of it? For you, pen, no pen? Was it even a foul?
It's tricky. I've not seen like 1,000 replays to know for definite. From what I saw of it, it looked like a trip, but I've heard plenty of people saying he caught his own ankles and went down. The thing I know for definite is that it was outside the area. So whether you're going to give it or not, it's got to be a free kick. But at the same time, with the pace of the modern game, it's very difficult to know in that situation. So from what I've seen of it, it's a penalty. But I would have to go back and look at the footage and double check, because I know a lot of people that say Ruben Loftus-Cheek has essentially tripped himself up.
Yeah, and it certainly is outside the box.
It's a penalty when you just said it's outside the area.
Well, I think a foul.
Well, yeah, it should have been a foul. If it was given, if it was given exactly where it was, then it should have been a free kick. But if you're going to give it and say it's either a penalty or not, then it's a penalty.
Yeah, tough one. Good game though, has to be said. Good two sides that are at very differing points of their seasons and have had very differing seasons. Danny, just a quick question on Chelsea before we move on to the Sunday games. If indeed it is Antonio Conte, the Italian national manager and former Juventus boss, that is the one to come in, do you think he's got major surgery to do with Chelsea? There's a lot of ageing players in that side, a lot of players that seem to have reached their sell-by date at Chelsea, and even someone like Fabregas himself. I mean, can you see some real major surgery going on in that team in the summer?
Definitely. I think the only players in that team that are going to be safe, I would personally say definitely Courtois, Fabregas, Oscar, Willian, and that's probably close to being just about it. All the strikers are rubbish, all the defenders are rubbish. Terry's going to retire. Well, Terry's probably going to go off to probably LA Galaxy. Actually, no, maybe he won't go there. But I can see him going off to somewhere in America to join the rest of the has-beens. Ivan Ivanovic has been a nightmare all season. But someone made a very good point today, talking to Ian Wright and Kelly Cates, saying Arsenal, Man City, Man United, Chelsea, and Liverpool. Oh, they're all having a massive clear out in the summer. Who's going to buy all their players? Because you can't give them free transfers, because then you have to pay out the rest of their wages. So who of all these players are going to go to? Because you can't get rid of them. Like, as Arsenal fans, we go 6 or 7 need to leave. I've just said there, Chelsea need to get rid of about 7 or 8, especially with him, if he does come in. The type of football that he used to like at Juventus is a more slow-paced, needs big defensive midfielders, decent defenders. No, they haven't got any of those at the club, have they? I mean, Mikel's going to be out on his bum as soon as look at him. He's not going to like the likes of Remy out front, who never scores goals. Falcao, I don't even know if he's registered with Chelsea at the moment to play in the Premier League. I know he wasn't when they were in the Champions League, and they've gone and got. I know they've only got him on loan, but you've got Pato, who's not even played a game yet.
He's enjoying the food of London, I think.
I
looking
bet
at him,
he's going to be piling those bloody pounds on because he's a bit of a fatty when he was at Corinthians and Sao Paulo. They're going to need massive surgery, and whether it's going to be, because wasn't it one of the Brazilian next managers? Was it Wanderlei Luxemburgo or someone like that who came in?
Scolari, I think it was.
Was it Big Phil?
Yeah.
He came in and then he did all right, and he changed the entire thing. And it seems like every time a manager comes in at Chelsea, they just go, get rid of everybody, let's start again. You can't keep doing that because the amount of money they're wasting is. I think there was some stat going around recently that they listed the amount of money that Chelsea has spent firing managers is more than most Premier League teams have spent buying players in the last decade. It's amazing how they can just keep throwing. Well, again, the amount of money that he's got. I think he makes billions.
He loses more down the sofa than I make in a year. So
you don't make any in a year.
Fair point. I would say
10p in your cup for a cup of tea.
That is it. I would say maybe Kurt Zuma is one they could build the defence around, but they still need a partner for him. So.
I don't overly rate him.
Do you not? Oh, I like him.
I think he's a little bit too immobile.
He reminds me a bit of that Samba.
Oh yes.
He's
far better than Samba, trust me.
Yeah, I don't doubt that he's going to be a better defender than Samba, but I looked at Samba and I thought, yeah, good strong defender, but he's absolutely no good in the Premier League because of the pace of it.
I'd know him as a cornerstone as a Premiership winning team.
Yeah, Zuma strikes me as the same kind, that he's strong enough for the Premier League, but isn't quick enough for the Premier League. But he's still got plenty of time to develop as a centre-back.
Yeah, I think with the right partner, I think he could be. Ironically, Laurent Koscielny is probably an ideal partner for him, but don't even think about it, Chelsea, please. For Christ's sake. We've got enough trouble as it is without shipping him out. But yeah, nevertheless, a good feisty London derby, which is what we like to see.
And West Ham were robbed.
Yeah, well, standard. Let's move on to the Sunday games then. Now, this is not an anti-Tottenham bias, I promise, Tottenham fans. If there are any of you that listen to this, we're not excluding you, but the truth is, none of us have managed to see the highlights of your game.
I did.
So, you did you?
Yeah, when you lot were talking. That's when you said I was ignoring you.
Sorry, Danny. Well, in that case, then Tottenham 3.
They're rubbish.
Bournemouth 0. A goal in the first minute from Harry Kane. He went on to score a second as well. That set the tone, wasn't it? I think Pochettino said after the game that the early goal was crucial because obviously it put Bournemouth on the back foot and allowed Spurs to creatively play, and it took all the nervous energy out of the ground. So they've won 3-0. They're still on the coattails of Leicester. Do you think their challenge is still alive?
It all depends on how they're going to do with the games they got coming up. But the most impressive thing about that game was that first minute ball from Danny Walker. I mean, Danny Walker, not bloody Danny. It's Danny Rose. And
8% catchprast. Oh, that's Roy Walker.
Yeah, Roy Walker. Who's the number? Carl Walker.
Carl Walker or Danny Rose.
Yeah, Carl Walker from the right back. From almost in the right back defensive position, all the way over to the far left-hand corner of the halfway line. A perfect ball to Kane. Then Kane ran down the left-hand side and he shot from the edge of the corner, edge of the box to like where the goalkeeper's right is, and from about 22, 23 yards out, rifled it into the bottom right-hand corner. I think it was the bottom right. I'm trying to get my left and right back the right way around. That was immense. And then the second goal, Dele Alli, who was having the season of his life because he's only 12, he just went straight through the entire of the Bournemouth defence and then just slotted the ball straight to Kane, and Kane ran through the last two defenders and slotted it in the bottom right hand corner. And then the third goal was by Eriksson, and I can't remember that goal. But as for, I was going to have a look and see what games they've got left for the rest of the season, because they've now been dumped out of the UEFA Cup by Dortmund. And I think
their immediate fixtures are quite tough for Tottenham. There's a big bundle of very tough ones.
Away at Liverpool, which is not going to be easy. Home to Man United, away at Stoke, and then at home to West Brom, away at Chelsea, home to Southampton, and then away at Newcastle. Well, out of all those lot, I'd say only 2 are going to be easy. That's the West Brom and the Newcastle one. The rest of them are going to be quite hard. Leicester, where's their... So I'm just going to have a look and see... Oh, there we go, Leicester. just a little bit further above. Leicester's next few games are home to Southampton. A Sunday 1:30 kick-off, I'll be asleep. Then they are away at Sunderland, another 1:30. Bloody hell, Sky have done these. The next one, home to West Ham, another 1:30. And then they're all home to Swansea, and then they're away at Man United, another 1:30. So 4 out of their next 5 Premier League games are 1:30 kick-offs. I'm glad I'm not a Leicester fan. I'd miss most of those. But they got some. Yeah, they got. I mean, if they're going to be playing Sunderland, Swansea, and they're a couple of years ago. As to getting back to your question, which is the most important thing, I think the fact that Leicester have got such a big gap, they haven't got many internationals there compared to Spurs, who's going to have, at the moment, filling up half the England squad, going off and paying pointless internationals. 5 points clear. Well, it's going to be 4 points, isn't it? Because Spurs have got a goal difference of 9 better, which if they do end up with the same points, gives them like half-point advantage. However you want to look at that, I don't think anyone's going to catch Leicester. Leicester are playing with such confidence at the moment. 4 out of their last 5 games have been 1-0 wins, which is the form of a team all playing together. Like I said earlier, that's what winning teams do, and they're doing brilliantly. And if it's not Zaki scoring, it's going to be Vardy, or if it's going to be Mahrez, or it's going to be someone like that. And the whole team just look brilliant. And they've not done it all season. They've lost 3 games. 2 of those were to Arsenal. So out of 29 games all season, they've lost 1. Once you take away the Arsenal ones,
Scary
which is
stuff.
Bloody impressive. So I don't think Spurs will catch them. If anything, I think Arsenal might even catch Spurs. I don't think. Yes, I said we're going to lose to Everton, but yeah, Arsenal got some a decent run of form coming back. All the players are there. They seem to be playing with a little bit of confidence now. The manager seems to have realised that Walcott isn't the answer on the right hand side or the left hand side, or in fact on the subs bench he should be driving the bus.
And
so
how
it's going to be an interesting end to the season.
And how ironic, and again, this is not a dig, and I think even any Spurs fans listening will probably nod along to this. In the one season that Spurs can finally potentially finish above Arsenal, they won't win anything potentially. I mean, that must be the biggest kick in the teeth ever. But in fairness to them, and trying to take my Arsenal hat off and not be biased here, Spurs qualifying for the Champions League straight into the group phase is probably going to be seen as a pretty successful season for them.
Especially with
overall.
Man City, West Ham and Man United all drawing.
Oh, we'll come on to them in a minute. But before we do, Ross, your time is now. We'd like to get your thoughts on your beloved Saints. I'm going to set the scene for you, and then I'm just going to let you go for gold. So it's Southampton-Liverpool. It's at St Mary's. Liverpool start like house on fire. Philippe Coutinho after 17 minutes. Daniel Sturridge after 22. The half-time whistle goes. You're 2-0 down. What happened next?
Everything happened. I mean, I said at half-time in our WhatsApp group that the first 45 minutes of that game were the toughest 45 minutes of football I have ever had to watch. Just the most disheartening, the hardest to watch. The penalty decision that didn't go our way when Lovren pulls down or pushes down Shane Long. The fact that he's still on the pitch by the time he picks up what would have been his second yellow later on in the game. The sheer amount of passes that were going awry, the chances we were wasting. And then Coutinho, who just has a habit of scoring these long-range goals against us for some reason, scoring the first one, to then have Sturridge score the second, which is a very good finish, but shouldn't have been allowed to get in that position to score it. Suddenly it feels like we're going to lose this by thousands. We then got Joe Allen, goes through one-on-one, forced the managers to save it. We then got Joe Allen scoring, but Sakho's offside. The goal doesn't count. It just feels like this is going to be a really, really long, tough afternoon. And I was so tempted at half-time to turn the game off and just go, no, this is not going to go for us today. And then second half kicks off. We look a lot better. Wanyama and Mane change the game. We get a penalty off Skirtle 4 minutes into the second half. He just come on as a sub for Lovren because Klopp after the game said the emotion of the game was getting to him, and deservedly so, because Southampton fans were giving him all the stick in the world. And you're thinking with this penalty, right, if this goes in, then you never know. There's always a chance. It's 45 minutes. We're still a good team. We can still get back into this. And then Mane steps up to take it. And now I said this at the time, and I'll stand by this now. Mane is the last player in the world that should be taking that penalty because of the poor goal scoring run he's been on since about November. The last goal he scored was against Liverpool in the Capital One Cup. And a penalties are high pressure. You know, you need to be a certain level of calm and confident to score a penalty. I didn't think Mane was the right man for it. And inevitably, he then missed. Mignolet saves it. And I remember at the time, I just slunk back into my chair and I thought, right, well, is this just going to be damage and imitation? It's just going to be see how we can get out of this with as much pride and tact as we can against a team that we are. As Southampton fans, we have a rivalry with Liverpool now because of the last few transfer windows. This is our big game of the season. So it was very depressing to see that penalty go wide. And then suddenly everything just kicked off. You know, the first Mane goal, it just suddenly gave everyone so much belief and so much hope. Pella's goal is a fantastic finish from a striker that until last week looked an absolute shadow of himself. Really, really fantastic goal. Koeman starts, geeing up the crowd. Suddenly he's getting animated, and he's not a manager that gets animated normally. The whole stadium is buzzing, and as a Southampton fan, it was electric to watch it live. And suddenly the wind's right behind us, and then we get to the winning goal, and it's that game summarized everything that, as a football fan, you love about the sport. The lows of the first half, to feel like the world was against you, and then to come back and win that 3-2, to have the entire stadium erupt. I mean, I still can't get the sound of the "When the Saints" chant that followed that third goal out of my head. It still gives me chills when I was watching it back on Match of the Day earlier. To see Koeman running down the line as well, I mean, that's something he's never done before. I don't think he'll ever do it again. There was so much emotion in that game as a Southampton fan. It was surreal to watch it. And I'm going to be thinking of that for a very long time. The first half and the second, it's going to be an absolute picture of everything that I love about football.
Even as a neutral, it was proper fun. Even watching the highlights back, it was proper good fun. There's one other thing that we would be remiss not to bring up. I tweeted a little picture earlier on of it, and if our listeners haven't seen, it's well worth checking out. Do you want to tell the listeners the little Easter egg, if you will, that you found after a certain Daniel Sturridge celebration?
There's a small child in the crowd. He's in a little red hoodie, and the second goal goes in, and at that point we are getting absolutely battered, and suddenly it feels like this could be 4, 5 or 6. And this little kid does the thing that we all wanted to do, quickly flips off Daniel Sturridge, and his dad, who is just taking a moment to think about what he's watching and what this could mean for the rest of the game, doesn't realise his very small young child is flipping off a professional football player. Quickly realises it, throws his hand down and berates him. I so hope that kid enjoyed the third goal. Really, really do. It was a very funny moment in a first half that really needed some kind of motivation for us as Southampton fans.
It's well worth a look. It really is very, very funny. Right, okay, we've got a couple more games to cover, and we're gonna finish with. I think we've got one question, and then we just might be working on a little piece of magic for our listeners later on. More on that to come. But let's cover the Newcastle Sunderland game. Danny, have you caught up on this one?
Yes, I did. Yeah, because it was a couple of funny incidents happened in it.
There was. Who do you think this result benefits more, or does it benefit either side? Sam Allardyce cuts the most frustrated figure in the world right now, of a man whose side just cannot close out a game that, in a winning position. He's been in a winning position so many times in the last few weeks, and his team just can't close us out. And then on the flip side, you look at Rafa and Newcastle, and you say, okay, it's a last-minute equaliser or late equaliser, but a point doesn't suit either of these two sides, really, does it?
No, you would expect Sunderland to probably have the upper hand because it is they've been playing together for a while. Defoe's on one of the most informed strikers of the calendar year. And yeah, when they have a new manager come in, sometimes they do have the wonderful managerial effect of they suddenly start winning games, which Rafael Benitez is no mug. He's done brilliantly here in England with Liverpool, and then in Spain. Previous to that, in Spain was it Valencia? He won the title 2 years, twice, and got the Champions League final.
Yep.
And then he was off to Italy, and he was a manager of was it in Roma?
Napoli.
Napoli. Yep. Higuain, of course it was. And then off to Real Madrid, which he was done over by Real Madrid. He used to be manager of Real Madrid B. I didn't know that. Many moons ago. So he's come in and he's had an effect. He's still using the same players, playing, I think, roughly the same kind of formation. But that Mitrovic, I really like him. He's like an angry Giroud for the entire game. Early on in the game, as the game started, you could see Newcastle were getting stuck in. They got quite a few early bookings. Matt and Colback and Shelvey all got booked, and then Defoe, the ball comes sliding across, and then Defoe just kind of toe poked it in, Fox in the box. That's what he does, which I think I'm just going to have a little press a couple of buttons here and see how many goals. That's 12 goals in 26 games. Now, it wasn't that long ago. These last season with Spurs, he got 1 in 14 in 2013-14. Then he was at Toronto. Then he came back to Sunderland last season and got 4 in 17. And you think, well, the old boy now, he's 33 now. His goal-scoring days are behind him. But then to come back in a struggling team near the bottom of the Premier League and get 12 in 26. And I think since Christmas, he's had 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 since Christmas, which is absolutely brilliant for a team that low down. But then for Newcastle to come back and that Mitrovic way, he scored another a bit of a sloppy goal, nothing spectacular. But then he decided to take his top off and he ran. He took his top off, swung it around his head like a helicopter. He ran over to near the corner. Then he ran back up the pitch again. Then he ran back into the middle of the pitch again. And then a Newcastle fan come running onto the pitch and tripped over. And he landed on top of him. And then he picked him up. And then they were all hugging. And you're thinking, that's about 9 yellow cards you should have had then. So he got the yellow card. And then he got injured. And then he had to go off. And then he's arguing with Rafa Benitez. He wants to come back on again. He goes, I want to come on. Let me on. No, you're not coming back on. Get off. Because I think they were down to...
down to 10 men.
Yeah. But... I think if he wouldn't have got injured and they'd have stayed on, then I think maybe they might have pushed for the winner. But it's good to see Rafa coming in doing well. I'm not sure which one of those two teams. I used to always say I like Newcastle the most, but now that Sam Allardyce, I've always got a soft spot for Sam Allardyce. So who does best out of that lot? I suppose you've got to think Sunderland have, because they're the away team. To get an away draw when you're down the bottom of the league is important. But thinking of it, they should have really had the upper hand. Like you said, they've had the lead quite a few times recently, haven't they? And then given the lead up, they can't hold on to it. And the Don ended up, Vito Manoni, the Don, got a 90th minute booking, which isn't. He must have been frustrated. Was he taking his time? Or,
he was, yeah. He had a little bit of a bust up with Mitrovic before. Oh no, with Cisse, sorry, before, and then he took his time over the goal kick.
But if you had to look on paper and write down all of Newcastle's players and you put them into a decent formation, they've got a hell of a team there, haven't they?
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, Sissoko, Wijnaldum, and Shelvey, Mitrovic, Townsend, Janmaat, and then you look at the ones like who was the Chektioti, and he's not even fit at the moment.
Nope.
And De Jong's another decent one, and Cisse's decent. They have got a team that should be. You're thinking that's definitely a UEFA Cup team. So you watch, if Newcastle stay up, which I don't think they will, but if they do stay up, you watch them next season under Rafa, because they're not short of a few quid.
True. I'm going to make
an interesting game.
I'll make a bold statement here, and I might look really, really foolish.
I'll edit it if you do.
I probably will. I think Newcastle and Sunderland will both stay up this season.
You think Norwich and Palace are going down?
I think. Well, no, I don't.
You think they're going to change it and only one team's going down?
No, I think Norwich and Swansea are going to go down.
I can see Swansea.
I just looked at those fixtures again, and I just have a feeling. I maybe, as I say, I'll probably be ridiculed for this when it all doesn't happen, but I think Pardew will just about. Maybe last day of the season perhaps, but I think they'll be all right. I think they've got enough going forward. But Swansea really worry me. That squad is threadbare, and Norwich, I think, a win yesterday was brilliant, but they never convinced me. And I think Rafa will have just about enough time to keep Newcastle up. And I've seen enough from Sunderland to suggest that, particularly in Defoe and Khazri, who I really like, I think they'll be all right. So there you go. I put my head on the block.
What we should do is go to the BBC Predictor, the three of us, and then just predict the games for the rest of the season. Well, it might take a little bit too long, and then see just where we think, because it has the most, has Laura's prediction, most popular prediction, and then you put your one in, and it gives you a league table of who's going to go down and who isn't.
Well, I'll tell you what we could do, because we are planning on doing a championship special during the international break.
Yeah.
We could maybe do a very brief predictor of Premier League special breakfast pod if we can find the time. So if we get the time, we'll squidge in a half-hour pod extra and see what.
Look at you. Always giving.
Always giving, you know me. Right, our final game to cover this weekend is going to hand over to you, Ross, for the Manchester Derby. Fair to say it wasn't a thriller. It ended by a win for Manchester United by a 0-0 from that man, Mr. Rashford, who's quickly establishing himself as the new Danny Welbeck, maybe.
The new Messiah.
Indeed. But what I want to ask you, Ross, is rather than looking at the game, which we should say, we'll touch on the league table in a minute, but it brings Manchester United right into that fourth place hunt, if you will. What I want to ask you is about City. A few of their players have sort of made allusion. I think it's Zabaleta came out today and said it has affected the focus, the Guardiola thing. Do you think that's a legitimate excuse, or do you think it's more that City are fully focused on the Champions League now? Because I can't see them getting past PSG myself. I know I'm biased, but if they don't get past PSG and suddenly they fall out of the Champions League, what on earth does Guardiola do?
I don't think either of those are excuses for Man City, because the away form all season has been awful. I mean, even before we thought that Pep was going to be coming in, the away form for Man City this season has been mid-table, if not lower kind of form. It's been absolutely awful. That's not a problem that came about because Pep was coming in. That wasn't a problem that came about because of Pellegrini leaving. It wasn't even a problem about the Champions League. That's just, poor organisation, poor defending, poor concentration. They have not been good enough all season long. And I don't think the Pep thing has helped. I really don't. It's provided them with a good mask to say that, they've gone awry because, but they haven't been good enough all season. And frankly, I think Pep Guardiola is going to be looking at this team from his seat over there in Bayern and thinking, wow, there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and here's a stat for you. They've lost 4 of their last 6 Premier League games, and 3 of them have been at home. I mean, that speaks volumes, doesn't it? Mm. And I should say, in those defeats, they've failed to score in 3 of the last 4 games.
Mm. I mean, the other thing I would add about that game is that for all the money in the world, for the fact that Pep Guardiola is coming in, for all the players that he's going to be able to bring, all the trophies he may or may not win them, the one thing that Man United will have today is a Man United lad, Rashford, scoring the winner in a Man United derby or in a Manchester derby. That's something Man City can't buy, and I think for Man United fans, that's a very big victory.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Well, that concludes our sort of roundup, and indeed most of our pod tonight. But I will just quickly rattle through the table, so in case anyone doesn't know where things stand, Leicester are indeed still top. They're 5 points clear of Spurs in second, 66 points for Leicester, 61 for Spurs. Arsenal is still just about clinging on to the coattails in third on 55, and then Manchester City, as we just alluded to, are just about in fourth on 51. But there's suddenly a big chase now. West Ham and Manchester United in 5th and 6th respectively, both on 50 points, just a point behind Man City. And whisper it quietly, Southampton are not quite out of it either, 7th on 47 points after their win today. And even Stoke, you could argue, have got an outside shot on 46 in 8th. Liverpool, Chelsea make up the top 10. Down at the bottom, Villa, 16 points, 31 played. As we've been saying for weeks, they are doomed. It's a matter of time before it's confirmed. Newcastle and Sunderland, after their draw today, remain in the bottom 3 on 25 and 26 points respectively. Norwich just about above it on 38 points. And then you could probably say that Crystal Palace on 33 points, Swansea on 36. Watford and Bournemouth probably safe on 37 and 38. I would say so, but Swansea again would be the ones I'd look at. So that's where we stand as far as the table goes. Now we've had one question because we didn't. I'll confess, my bad. We didn't have time to put out a tweet asking for questions, but we did get one from our good friend the Pigman J Hankenstein. And Danny, seeing as you've piped up, and Ross has kind of just covered this actually, so it's good to get your thoughts. He wanted to know which of Man City's starting 11 could count on being part of next year's squad under Guardiola.
Wow, that's a tough one,
isn't it?
I think Aguero, that's a given.
Yeah.
Silva. Sterling, they're not going to let Sterling go. They cost too much money.
Yeah.
Touré's going to be out. Both the Nandinhos are going to be gone. Navas hasn't really worked out. Sanya's, if you don't want to get rid of too many, Sanya and Clichy, they can both stay. Dimicheli's after the way he was today. He'll be just taken out and used for dog food. Mangala, I think he costs so much money again, you can't get rid of him. Joe Hart will definitely be there. What other ones have they got? Boney will be out.
Kevin De
Cavallero.
Bruyne, I would think.
I count 6 personally.
Yeah,
six
De
players.
Bruyne will definitely be staying.
I think Delph is a good player for Pep as well.
I can see maybe him going unless they want to keep up the England quota.
I think Delph could stay just because, like Russ says, his style of play. I don't think David Silva will be there next season. I really don't.
See him
No,
going back to Spain.
I see him going back to Spain. I could see him. Potentially even move like a Mata move to another English team. I just think that Guardiola's pressing style is not a David Silva style of play at all. Tom would be better placed to speak about this than I would, I'm sure. But
it all depends on how far they get in the Champions League. Well, if they don't win it and they don't get into the Champions League next season, they're not going to want to keep all the big stars on. Or Richard Wright, I think.
the one thing you would say, the one caveat you would probably say is that even if the unthinkable happened and they didn't make the Champions League, I think Guardiola as a manager himself is a big enough draw that they could still get the world class players. I don't think it's going to be a Manchester United situation where
Lewandowski and Aguero up front, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I think that if you look at Manchester United, they're a big enough name. They could still attract players because there was that sort of, well, we're at the Champions League for one season, but we're rebuilding. Come and join the party. And if you look at Man City, when they first got all their money, they weren't the club they are now, and big name players still went there for the idea of what was to come. So
I've counted 12.
12 that they'll keep.
Yeah.
Interesting. Who were the six you think, Ross? Who were the six that they'd keep?
I should stress these are the only ones that I think are absolute definites. They will obviously keep more than just these six. But I counted Aguero, Kevin De Bruyne, Raheem Sterling, Fabian Delph, Pablo Zabaleta, and Joe Hart. Those are the six I counted. But I think you can count on Kompany and Otamendi to still be there because I don't think they've got much choice. But at the same time, I still think that if a decent player becomes available, Pep would still rather buy a new centre back, and then Otamendi or Kompany has to be sacrificed because Mangala's not going to. I don't think Mangala's going to cut it. Don't think he's cut it since day one.
But they're going to lose a massive. What do they pay? Best part of 30 for him, and they'll be lucky to get 8 or 10 for him now, wouldn't they?
Oh,
yeah,
they're going to make a loss on nearly everything.
They will.
Horse-faced lesbian, will he be leaving?
He'll be gone. Nasri will be gone. Yes. For those who don't know who that is, no, I can't. And if you look at the age of some of these players, Toure 32. I mean, we assume he'd be gone anyway. Nasri's 28. Fernando's 28. Jesus Navas is 30. Fernandinho is 30. Otamendi 28. Demichelis 35.
The biggest concern is the defenders.
Yeah,
you just count the sheer amount of defenders that are over 30. It's ridiculous.
It's pretty much
the aging back line.
It's all of them apart from Mangala's 25. Yeah. Oh, and Otamendi's 28. Kompany technically 29, but yeah, they're all pushing 28 upwards.
I mean, the fact that Kompany gets injured so often or has this season, I think is going to be a bad sign for Pep. I just think that. I don't think all of these players will go. I just think that if a player becomes available, and you've obviously got to pick and choose, you've got to be careful of taking in too many and putting out too many. But if the defence is the biggest problem there, and I don't think Vincent Kompany's safe for all the good he's done for Man City. I don't think he's safe. If a decent centre back becomes available, Pep would much sooner have him, I think, than an aging Vincent Kompany who just continually gets injured.
Totally agree. I think the only other one I'd add to the list I've just thought of, I think Kelechi Iheanacho will still be there.
Yes, yeah.
I think he's got a big future, so he may even go out on loan. Although saying that, the fact that Pep Guardiola is playing someone like Kingsley Coman, for example, at Bayern, I can see him using Iheanacho in exactly the same way. So I think he's probably safe. So so there you go, Pigman. That's your question answered. It's a good question, and I'm sure somebody will ask us at some point. Which players that we think Pep will actually go for? That will certainly be an interesting question. So,
or whether we think Pep's going to succeed or not.
Yes,
I don't think we've covered that in all the time that it's been announced that he's coming, and that's a whole pod in itself.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, that really is. We might touch on that in a live pod as well. Right, before we go, Ross, you had an interesting question, and I know Danny doesn't even know about this question, so I think it's only fair we dig it out quickly. You wanted to ask us a question about chants.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to the chants that came out about Deja Lovren today, which I can't repeat because this is a PG show. But I was just struck by the creativity of football chants in England, and I was wondering if you guys remember any particular favourite football chants from over the years.
Well, while Danny thinks of them, keep them clean, Danny.
I'm filtering out the ones that yeah, I can't even say.
It's a bit tough, isn't it? Well, there's two that come to mind to me that are both clean. There was one actually quite recently when AFC Wimbledon entertained Luton, and Luton's goalkeeper has a particularly interesting surname, which is Justum. But if you look at that from a sort of perspective of how you look at it, it's actually just Ham, is how it's written.
Right.
And the chant from the Wimbledon fans to the Luton keeper was, "You're just a Tesco sandwich," which I thought was quite amusing. And one that I remember from back in the day was the FC United of Manchester, fairly newly formed, and
We're having a terrible season at the moment.
yes,
On the verge of relegation.
There's quite a good YouTube video, which I don't know, you have to look it up, but they're all in the main stand at an away game, and the police are walking past, and they've all got their hats on, like the old-fashioned police uniforms. And the song that the FC United Manchester crowd sing is "What a waste of council tax we paid for your hats," which I thought was very creative and very amusing. So that's the two I'll give you. Have you managed to find any that you can bleep, Danny, for attention?
My favourite Arsenal one was Emmanuel Petit. He was French and he had long blonde hair. And he went, "He's French, he's quick, his name's a porno flick, Emmanuel,
Yeah,
Emmanuel." And then another one was Vieira, oh, Vieira, oh. He comes from Senegal, he plays for Arsenal. But my favourite of all time for any club, Philippe Albert, and everybody knows his name.
Yes.
Oh, beautiful.
I've got one more quickly. Anyone remember the Habib Bey one from the Newcastle fans?
Oh, yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Habib Bey.
Tuesday, Habib Bey. Yeah, I thought that was also very creative. So I'm sure there's thousands, and I'm sure there's plenty from our overseas listeners that could come up with some very good ones. But it's a great question, and we will try and dig out some more in time for the next show. So
I've got a couple myself from this season alone.
Yeah, go on.
There was the Villa game in the Capital One Cup, and it was 0-0 for about 60 minutes, and then Yoshida got our first goal. And full credit to the Aston Villa fans, they came out with "How bad must you be? It's only 1-0." And no matter what the scoreline is, it was "How bad must you be?" It's fantastic.
X-0, yeah.
When I used to ball boy for Southampton in League One, I remember watching us go 3-0 up against Tranmere. And the Tranmere team in 2009 was, it was awful. It was bottom of the league going down. And the Tranmere fans came out with "That's why we're going down." It's so nice when you get a self-deprecating chant. And the one I remember most recently from the Premier League was Jay Rodriguez when we lost him to injury against Man City last season. The game after, we were all quite worried as fans about what was going to happen with the front three, because at the time it was Ricky, it was Jay, and it was Adam. And without Jay, we were wondering how the front three was going to be against Everton. And in that game, Everton scored 2 own goals, and our fans came out with "Hoonies Rodriguez, we've got your back four," which was a beautiful, beautiful chant after such an awful week for Jay. So
that's very good.
Those are the three that stand out for me. But like I said, there are a lot, and there's some that I can't say because of the swearing in it.
Yeah.
But there's a pretty good Jason Punchin one. He took a break during the second half of a game and ran backstage to go and do something.
I remember this.
And when he came back out, the crowd already knew about it. It was already all over Twitter, and the fans got on him. And I mean, there's so many good chants.
Got one more quick one that Danny will love. Danny, Jason Lee. He's got a pineapple on his head. Remember that one?
It was a bloke, and he played for Peterborough, and he played for Bradford, and I think he might have played for Leicester in the Premier League. He was a bit of a journeyman. He had an interview after because he had like dreadlocks, and he used to tie them in a bun and put them on top of his head so it looked like a cone.
Nottingham Forest,
like a pineapple.
Days.
Nottingham Forest as well.
Yeah.
And I think he's only just recently retired, playing near best part of 40. And he said it actually used to affect his game where he couldn't play properly.
Yeah.
So he'd go, he's got a pineapple on his head, he's got a pineapple on his head, he's got a pineapple on his head.
Gotta love it.
I've just done my league table for the end of the season.
Oh, save it, Danny, save it.
I know,
don't let the listeners in on this gold.
All I'm going to say is Ross won't be happy.
I never ran.
Well, we'll draw a line there for this week. We had some excellent content this week, gentlemen. Very, very good stuff. I'm sure the listeners will love it. And that noise is my cats racing down the corridor. There they go.
They know it's all over.
Yeah, they are.
It is now.
We will be back, of course. As I said earlier on in this pod, we have an international break soon. Boo! We don't do international football on the Football Hipsters podcast. No, we don't.
Horrible, pointless, rubbish.
But what we do, but what we do is offer you content. Of course, we wouldn't let you down. What we are planning to do, listeners, is our pod will be out as normal tomorrow. So the European football pod will be done tomorrow night and out Tuesday as usual. What we are then planning to do is over the break for international football is myself and Ross are going to record at some point when we can get together.
A single,
indeed. A championship.
Diamond Lights.
Can you imagine? We're going to record a championship / League One, League Two special where we're just going to have a look at the sort of the lower end of the leagues or non-Premier League.
Me how Peterborough got on.
Oh, well,
they won.
We might have
their first win in 9.
We might have you on. You never know if you behave yourself.
Hey.
So that's what me and Ross are going to do, which will not be in place of English breakfast. It will just be a special. And then, as we mentioned earlier, we'll try and fit in an English breakfast where we'll maybe look at our predictions to the end of the season. So we'll try and cram that in. And we're also planning to do a live pod, which I'm hoping to get. I'm hoping to get you and Ross involved as well, because the idea is a meeting of all of the pods in one place. So we'll maybe look at doing maybe a Google Hangout where our lovely listeners can interact with us, and we can get the 4 European hipsters on at the same time as you two. So if we can make our schedules work, that's the plan. We'll hopefully announce more tomorrow. So there's a little tease for you. Other than that, that's it from us. Do have a look at our website and have a look at our content. And myself and John did the Satchel on Thursday night, wrapping up the Champions League and Europa League. So give that a listen as well. And the final thing to say is, Danny, I've at the request, I've asked you to splice a little extra into the podcast. So at the end of our delightful, yes, at the end of our delightful. Actually, no, don't bleep it. At the end of our delightful outro song, just stay tuned to the pod for another sort of 20-30 seconds or so. And if you have kids, please turn it off and listen to it in headphones, because there will be the full unedited 2 minutes and 49-second Neil Warnock halftime talk. It's from a very famous game. I think it's in the 80s. And Neil Warnock has his own unique brand of how to motivate his team at halftime. I'll say no more. Do have a listen and enjoy. And all that I can really say is to say thank you to Danny and thank you to Ross for your time this evening.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure as ever. I'm now off to lay down for about 7 days after today's game.
Happy times. So, yes, thank you both to yourselves, and thank you to our listeners. Keep your beard strong and your glasses trendy. Enjoy Neil Warnock's rant. Hope you enjoyed the pod, and we'll speak to you on our European version tomorrow.
It's Bergkamp. That's magnificent. Mark Vivian Foet, Sinclair's cross over Cunningham. Di Canio! Oh, I do not believe that. That is sensational. Tissier. He's going for goal again. Oh! Only Matthew Le Tissier can score goals like that. Collymore closing in. Liverpool lead in stoppage time.
I was disappointed at half-time, irrespective that we were defending the worst part of the pitch, and I knew that because we weren't ready for it, no matter what I said about not being able to stop the ball, the players would, and we got punished for that. I have my own routine, yeah. I go in the shower or bathroom, wherever it is, with Mick Jones and Paul Evans coming with me, having a cup of tea. They have their say, one from the dugout, one from the stands. I have my own opinions, I make a few comments, and then they leave me for a couple of minutes on my own, and then I go back in and put over what I want to the players. That's the routine I do.
They're getting out and throwing to the side. Every single both sides are getting out. He's not going to go. Willow, Any injuries? No. How can there be any injuries? What a silly question, eh? Look at me while I'm talking. The second goal. The first goal. You in soft as shit. You letting him back into it all day, you? And no happening. You're in Latvia. We're third in the league and we've got 2,000 fans getting pissed on over there and we ain't got as much passion. Simon, let's have somebody who'll put the head in. You go on Bully's run for the throws. Or for Bull then. Alright, second ball, you go in every time. Now listen, we're going to change 4-3-3, Dutch. Oh, Jesus, how many times have we heard? I know. We don't want you to know. We want us to stop it out there. Don't try and do everything. Just do what you're good at. Into the box, back, tackling. Tackling now. Now listen, hey, we ain't got where we are in table by not playing as a team. We weren't a team, were we? Now we've got 45 minutes. I'm not bothered about the result. Now we've lost the game as far as I'm concerned. I'm on about now Neil Warnock's side out there. 2,000 fans out there. One goal and they will panic. Now everybody, concentrate on the back pack. Don't be soft as shit. Now let's go out and give them...